Well, the bombshell dropped. Many of you have been somewhat expecting this for some time now. Some of you, weren't expecting it, but some really, really big news dropped just this morning, a few hours ago, as of this recording, and that is that the WoW token is coming to Wrath of the Lich King Classic. It has just I don't know how I don't think there's a way to undersell this or even euphemistically put it. It has just absolutely set the community afire, aflame. The subreddit is there are posts going up left, right, and center, thousands of upvotes on several posts just really covering all angles of this news. What does it mean for Wrath Classic? What does it mean for Hardcore? What does it mean for the upcoming season of Mastery? So many questions. And also just, arguments starting up, not even about World of Warcraft necessarily, but just around the concept of buying gold and paying to win in MMOs in general, the past, present, and future. And I really want to cover absolutely all of that in this call. And again, to everyone listening live, you are more than welcome to join in. All you need to do is, if you're in the town hall, click the button, put your hand up. If you're on Twitch, just let me know in Twitch chat that you want in and I'll get you in here. This is a community-based channel and we really do get all input from the community. So guys, this could be a long one. I'm just saying probably set yourselves up for a minimum of 90 minutes, and a maximum of fucking whatever. We'll just see sort of what everyone has to say. I would guess about 2 hours for this one, maybe 90 minutes. We'll see how we go. But a lot to really dive into. And let me introduce the callers that we have here who are going to help me go back and forth on this one. Mike, Balls of Steel, how are you, mate?
Josh, pleasure to be here, as always.
Absolutely. Great to have you back. I know a few of the guys were saying they were not shocked in the slightest to see you put your hand up for this one. Neither was I, but it's fantastic to have you. I know you'll come in with some, very, very, I don't hesitate to say aggressive, some strong takes. So I'm looking forward to those. Next, look, I was really, really impressed with this person on their one and only phone call that they were on a few weeks ago. And I was really, really hoping to get them back quite soon. And I'm so glad that, albeit in my mind, relatively unfortunate circumstances, we still get the opportunity to talk again. Galley Boy, mate, how are you?
Good. You are too nice. Thank you. And I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you, mate. Pastor Dave, you've been popping up as a bit of a series regular lately. You're like the great new addition series regular for season 5 of Countdown to Classic, and the cast is better for it. How are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. I've only got about an hour till I got some supper and family obligations, but I will be here for every second of that hour, Josh.
All good, mate. I'll be sure to maybe front load you some questions then. Parallax, mate, it is always a pleasure. How are you?
Good, Josh. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to talk about this and a totally even keel attitude.
Yeah, well, I will do my best to try and live up to my reputation as a relatively cool, calm, and collected person. Or maybe I've got that reputation. Maybe it's more that I'm a fuckwit and I don't know it. But we shall see. Parallax, I got a kick out of you mentioning to Mike that you fell under the influence of Countdown, I guess you could say, and you started finding yourself playing some more Magic after that Magic the Gathering call we did about a year or so ago.
I did, yeah. I've been listening to the show for quite a while, and that one, for some reason, I've played through that episode at least a few times. And at that point, I got addicted to Magic, and then realized why everyone goes broke.
And Blizzard doesn't think that podcasters are influencers. How dare you, you fucking assholes. Anyway, finally, leading up the charge here, well, not leading up the charge, at the back of the charge, but we're very happy to have him. Been a while, a long time since we've spoken, but obviously we run into each other at the Discord. Spidey, mate, how are you?
I'm dandy, Josh. Good to be in such esteemed company today.
It's great to have you, mate. Mate, can I ask one small favor before we continue? Do you mind turning off the noise for your push to talk, if that's cool?
Yeah, give me just a second.
All good, mate. You do that. All right, guys, look, let's get stuck into it. As always, I say it one more time. I'll probably repeat it a few times through the call. Everyone listening at home, you can join if you want. But look, guys, let's not bury the lead. The WoW token is here. there's so many things to talk about. I don't even think it's worth it trying to form some, kind of agenda for this kind of conversation, because we are just going to go all over the place. I know it's going to turn into a dog's breakfast really quickly. I guess it's my job as the moderator to try and keep us on track as best I can, but it really is like, fuck, where do I start? How about this? How about we start with oh my God. I was going to say the nature of the announcement. I'll just say it came up via a blue post. The world's shortest blue post that you have ever fucking seen. All of like 1.5 sentences of just like, the WoW token is now available on Wrath Classic. I'm going to paraphrase it, where the message was basically, go nuts. You know what I mean? It's here, deal with it, go nuts. No explanation, no elongated design philosophy, really well thought out post about why they've been hesitant in the past and why now is the right time. Fucking none of that. Just, this is them absolutely, I think it's fair to say, trying to not bury the news, but not wanting to go into it too much, because I think they know the kind of reception that this news would have gotten and has gotten. So, guys, like I say, I don't really know where to start, so I'll just throw it out to the crowd. First in, best dressed, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll help out as I can. What was your reaction to this news?
A lot of us knew it was coming, and it's like, all right, that's when.
Fair enough. Spidey, I'll start you off on a quick tangent. I guess it's easy to get this one out of the way early. I had to have a lot of, a big tongue-in-cheek laugh at this one, because exactly on what you've said when you say a lot of people were expecting this one. I know that the classic crowd in general has been somewhat tentatively bracing for this for many years now. Whether or not we fully expected it to come, we were sort of setting ourselves up for, if it comes, don't be shocked mode, which is kind of how I receive the news. But I had to take a jab at all the people who have been posting since 2018, 2019. The WoW token's coming. It's an inevitability. It's fucking coming. And like, albeit, yes, you were correct, eventually. But my joke was more that, if you've been posting that every 3 months for the last 4 years, yeah, I guess you were eventually right. But at what cost?
Mm. Yeah, it's, those people are going to pat themselves on the back and be like, I knew it all along.
I knew it.
But
I fucking knew it.
Yeah, it's like, well, you didn't exactly predict how, when, or where. But I don't know. As some of us, I think, just had the mentality of, you've seen the slow erosion of other commitments that they have made. And I guess it's not really fair for me to say, like, I knew it was going to happen at this point, but it's just like, on the other hand, I'm not really surprised. I don't have as much to say on this topic as you might think, but I do have a few choice thought provocations that I'll introduce at the right time in the call today.
No worries. No, all good, mate. Pastor Dave, like I said, I should front load you, mate, because you'll have to go eventually. What was your reaction to this one?
Well, I was surprised, but full disclosure, my fresh Wrath server Paladin is still level 79. I fell down the hardcore rabbit hole, so that's what happened to me and Wrath. As much as I was enjoying Wrath, hardcore just trumped it for me as an experience. But my first reaction was, oh crap, I have to seriously reconsider my position from last time about the likelihood of Cataclysm Classic being around the corner, because this feels like it's leaning more in that direction.
Right. Do you feel this is the precursor or the indicator for Cataclassic?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're still a ways away from the end of Wrath, but as far as the commercial effectiveness on Blizzard side of things, you want to get in there before everybody's almost done with ICC. You want to get in there now, and we just got an announcement for Trial of the Crusader. Is that right? Coming up in a couple weeks.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody can buy their WoW tokens to get their BOE gear and whatever else they need before the next raid drops. And I don't know. That was my first
Fair enough.
gut
Fair
reaction.
enough. We'll hear from the others as well. I guess as well, just to add on what you said there, Pastor Dave. You're sort of making the argument, and I somewhat agree with you. Well, I don't somewhat agree with you. I do agree with you that if anything, introducing the WoW token now, if you are basically going to go on to do Kata Classic, it's the gateway drug for an expanded shop in Kata, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean we didn't get it until with Warlords of Draenor, right? When when we first got the token. So I mean this is several expansions earlier, but the player base bringing their more retail experience to these older expansions has sort of accelerated the process, and of course the problem with all the gold that's being farmed and sold and floated around and all that.
Too easy. We'll go Parallax, Galley Boy, then Mike to bring it up at the end. I'm sure he's going to spout off. Parallax, mate, what was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think like other people were saying, it's not surprising that they did it. Honestly, Blizzard is no stranger to weird timing on things. Like they kind of just dropped it at random. I don't know what made now better than a year ago or 2 years ago, but for some reason they felt like, I don't know if the goal is to get rid of gold selling or try to at least, that maybe it's so rampant now that they decided now was the perfect time. But realistically, yeah, I'm not surprised, but also disappointed because it came right at a time when I started to sort of have faith in Blizzard again. I mean, I think I was on here for like 20 minutes a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of sounding like a shill a little bit, saying, "Oh yeah, they're listening to us." And I don't know, man. My spirits are down on it. It is what it is. I have some exposure to how it plays out in retail, so
I would say
totally
don't
get
beat
it.
yourself up by any means for either of those takes, because I mean, when I hear that, Parallax, I sort of hear that you're reacting, in my opinion, as a fan should. You take each piece of news on its face value and react accordingly. That's why I don't like shills, but that's also why I don't like doomers, is they live perpetually on their corner and react to anything the same way, as opposed to how things should be, where you want to live relatively close to neutral territory and just receive a piece of news and then give your in the moment, here's why I think this is good or bad, as opposed to having a preferred position. Do you know what I mean? So I would say it's
Sure.
fine. It's fine to quote unquote shill Blizzard for one piece of news and say, hey, fuck, that's really good. Good job, guys. And then eviscerate them the next minute for something silly. I think that's perfectly fine and how it should be.
Yeah, and I think that's the WoW community in a nutshell, though, right? I mean, it's overreactions to pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think a lot. I think more WoW players live in the Doomerland than not. Like people,
Yeah.
love it's a style of life to shit on this game no matter what. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, it doesn't go in one extreme or the other usually. So, or regardless, the timing is strange. But no, I'm not surprised by any means.
Too easy. I don't know why I said style of life instead of lifestyle. I'm an odd person. But anyway, Galley Boy, mate, let's throw it over to you. What was your reaction to this one?
Maybe I'm huffing hopium. I didn't expect it at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all like to talk about how Blizzard likes money and everything, but I just didn't expect it because, again, maybe the timing is just weird. And we're all no surprise. It's no surprise that they like to just drop stuff on us. But this is a weird one. So yeah, I'm kind of just up in the air about it, and it's definitely just odd in my opinion.
Right. So you're more bemused than anything, more not shocked, but just I guess, flummoxed a little bit.
Yeah, it's just an odd timing, an odd thing, like when there was no big ban wave. It was just, hey, here's the WoW token. I know you guys have talked about it for years, but here it is.
All right, Mike, bring us home.
I have to say I was pretty surprised after what was it when we originally got that news of the Chinese servers got the WoW token, and then years went by, and the WoW token never came to the rest of us. So I was pretty confident that the WoW token would never come to Classic, at least in NA and the EU. But yeah, that was me. I guess that was me just huffing all the hopium. But I mean, to me, it just makes me look back at like all the like love and effort I ever put into wanting Blizzard to bring back this old version of the game, and to me at this point, I'm in doomer mode. Not that I try to be a doomer all the time, but to me, I like classic WoW is just dead to me at this point. This is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Okay.
You could like make all the arguments about like the boost already, and then this is just like, no, I'm done.
All right. Guys, we've mostly stopped short, except for Mike's last little bit there. We've mostly stopped short of us, and by design, talking about whether we're sort of for this or against this news. I asked for your reactions. You know, you guys told me about whether or not you were surprised and sort of, you know, just seeing the news, how you might have received it. But I want to now go into whether you are for or against it. And this is rather important. Obviously, we're going to go in a very deep dive on whether this is a good or a bad thing in your opinion. But it's also very important for me to figure out how many of us on this call are for or against this. Because if all of us are going to sit here and I think, but I don't know, I think everyone here is going to say that they're not a fan of the WoW token and this is a bad decision. But if that is the case, I will happily take on board the part of devil's advocate, because it's really, really important that some form of argument goes forward about, you know, for the crowd that thinks this is a good thing. And it was very well and rightfully brought up in the Countdown Discord a couple of hours ago, you know, saying, Josh, for fucking, for, you know, the love of all that's holy, make sure you present both sides of the argument. And look, it's going to be the greatest acting job that I've ever done if I actually do take that on, and I will to as much of an extent as I can. But let's just quickly go around the table, and I'm going to ask for 2 words from you guys each, for it or against it. So I want to hear where you're at. Parallax?
100 against.
Okay, Pastor Dave?
Yes.
Sorry, is that it for it or against it?
I need more than 2 words, Josh.
Give us a sermon.
Okay. For the record, on your yay or nay question, I'm gonna clock in as against with a caveat that we can get to later.
Okay. All right. You sound like the atheist accepting Jesus on their deathbed, but that's fine.
Bart Simpson.
Exactly. Galley boy, for it or against it?
Because you're pigeonholing me into 2 words, I'm going to say for it.
Okay, beautiful. Excellent.
Nice.
Spidey.
Oof, I gotta echo Pastor Dave, because you're pigeonholing me. I'm going to say against it, but with a huge asterisk.
Okay, yeah. And Mike, I don't even have to ask you. Obviously, you're against it. You said so. I'm doing the bad lawyer thing, and I know if you're a lawyer, you might cock an eye at this, but I'm sorry, this is the correct answer. I'm doing the bad lawyer thing where they've got someone in the witness box and they're like, yes or no answer, and it's like, I'm sorry, but, you know, certain questions require context, and, you know, you think you're having your gotcha moment, but you're actually fucking not. Anyway, that's another story. So I appreciate that there are caveats and longer explanations behind your answers. So that's fine, Dave and Spidey. It's all good. We'll get into that. I'm really glad, Galley Boy, that you said you're for it. We're very much so going to need you to step up to the plate and be strong and boisterous in your opinions against the tide of no's that you're going to get. To be fair to you, even though I am very, very passionately against this, I will do my best to jump on board with your side where I can. So I guess it's probably good at this point to, I might start with you, Mike, on this one, because you're probably going to be the loudest on this point. We'll get the others to piggyback off what you say, and then we'll throw over to Galley Boy. Mike, tell me why you are so strongly against this in Wrath Classic.
I'm just trying to. I'm trying not to be like so. What is it?
You're trying to be intelligent about it rather than just saying "fuck
yeah.
shit, cunt."
Yeah, yeah. Then just saying the first thing that pops into my head about this, which I really want to, but I think it just breaks any just sanctity of what the original version of the game was. I mean, and I know, yes, you could argue, no, that was already dead and gone when they put in the boost or any other decisions, not enforce
Well,
gold buying
let me jump in,
and all
Mike. Let me
that.
jump in and push you. Because the easy question here is tell me why you say that. Why does it break the sanctity of Wrath Classic for you?
I mean, when the company just comes out and just says, yeah, gold buying is just like at actual just pay to win is just legal to do now. It just kills any feeling of what like old school MMOs used to be about.
Okay. Parallax, let me throw it over to you and ask you basically the same question. You were against the WoW token. The very easy question is why?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to find a place to start, but honestly, the only kind of context that I have for it and it existing at all is in retail. I'm one of those hybrid players. I switch back and forth. Knowing that retail had to, there are multiple examples here, but number one is what ends up happening is everything in the game has a dollar value attached to it. When gold buying is allowed, there's no there's no disincentivization towards the average player who doesn't know what website to go buy gold on. They can just buy it straight from Blizzard, get what they need to get, and then be on with their lives, right? Every item in the game, whether BOP, BOE, it doesn't matter, has an official dollar amount at that point. So, like I said, I can only compare it to what happens in retail. Pretty much what happens is, a new raid comes out, and now I know that if I want to get this title or I want to get this mount, it's X amount of gold, which equates to how many WoW tokens. So it's 1.5 WoW tokens for a heroic boost. Or in our case, it would be an Ulduar all hard modes plus Alg, right? It's going to be 100k gold, which is what? Okay, that's $100. So $100, I can get a full carry, all the loot that I want. There's a lot more to it that I think comes out after that. One instance is the trade chat. So if nobody knows, retail actually just released a second trade chat that is only for services because in-game services, selling boosts, selling runs was so popular and trumped regular trades so much that they had to separate it into another channel.
All right, well said. We'll expand on that very, very soon. I just want to get these short, sharp bursts out of everyone.
Sure.
Now, what I'll do is, Gally, I'll get you to go last. Pastor Dave, now is the time for your longest stage for your caveat and your explanation, mate. Tell me why you feel the way you feel.
Okay. So philosophically, I think it's bad for the game. In an ideal world where Blizzard was banning bots every 2 weeks to every month, in a world where gold selling in general was frowned upon by the community, and people who bought gold were ostracized or looked down on or not invited to groups. In a world like that, where the game economy and the game just the attitude of the players was probably healthier, I think tokens have no place whatsoever. I've always been more of a pragmatist, though, and so I recognize that in the current climate, all Blizzard is doing is they are taking their slice of the pie. That all that being said, so I get why it's not good for the game, but I also get why it's happening. But I said last time on the last podcast that Cataclysm Classic was the point of no return on what is quote unquote classic. But I actually think that adding the token is a bigger departure from what we have been calling classic up until now. And you can call me a hypocrite if you want, because I fund my my classic and hardcore addiction with my retail gold that's just been sitting there. And so I use the tokens on retail, but I use it to play classic. So again, pragmatism, right? It's there. it's either use the gold that I've accrued over decades or spend my real money. And since I don't have a use for the gold otherwise, and I, obtained it all legally, I don't see why. It's what Blizzard's giving us. So practically speaking, I'm going to do what I can do and pocket, my, instead of paying the sub fee out of my wallet, I'll pay it out of my bank balance in the game.
All right, well said. Spidey, now's your time as well for your elongated answer, mate. Your more complicated answer.
Oh, a lot of it jives so much with what Pastor Dave said. It specifically, the reason why I said I wasn't surprised, it wasn't necessarily that I was one of the doomers all along. It's that along the lines of what he said, I think that this solidifies that Cataclysm is the way that they're going to go forward with Classic, because we weren't really sure, are they going to consider Wrath the end of Classic? Are they going to do something like this? And I mentioned it in Town Hall, but my view at this has been for a while, but this solidifies it. Era servers, that is effectively Classic now. What they're calling Classic is just delayed retail. And because of that, I'm not surprised that the token was introduced. A lot of other things are going to get flushed in. People have commented about the hilarity of the poor communication from Blizzard on this. All right, that's par for the course. But philosophically, I agree that it's bad for the game, which is why I responded in the negative. And I don't like that they use it, they being Blizzard, as an excuse for combating bots. Why do I say that? Because they're not transparent with their bans and suspensions in the first place. They just throw up their hands and go, well, this is the only thing we can do about it. So again, along those lines, I agree with Pastor Dave that it's Blizzard taking a slice of their respective pie. Compare it with other games. Final Fantasy XIV on a weekly basis lists the number of people whose accounts were terminated or suspended for RMT activities. They list the number of accounts suspended for botting. They list the number of accounts terminated for real money, for RMT advertising. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Blizzard does anything of the sort, certainly not on a weekly basis. And you can't really fling to me that, it's, you can only do that because of the size of the game. If you believe MMOpopulation.com, WoW's got 2.4 million daily players on average. 14's got 1.63. So it's roughly 2/3 to 3/4 the size of the game. So that's why I'm against it, is because I think this is just Blizzard chipping away and backing out on other responsibilities that they should be doing. But I just sort of shrug, and why I'm not so much against it, because I don't consider Classic anymore. Era's Classic.
Okay, two really good points there before I throw it to Galley Boy to raise his very important argument against basically what we've heard so far. I wanted to get into this later, and we will get into it a little bit later, but I just wanted to say thank you, Spidey, for raising, number one, the era point, because I think it's become bleedingly obvious now that you're spot on. Era is the server that Blizzard points to and say, that's what you asked for. All those petitions, all that noise, we literally gave you what you want. So you're happy, Classic crowd. Everything outside of that, we're going to do with that what we want to do. And don't bitch to us about your fucking tokens and your boosts and all the money making. You got what you wanted, so shut the fuck up. It's there for you and always will be. I'm coming at that a little bit facetiously, but I appreciate you raising that point. We might touch on that a little bit further as well. But then also to bring up the Final Fantasy XIV thing, I really, really want to dive into this soon. It'll be a rather elongated tangent. We started talking in the Discord very, very briefly about what other MMOs do. And I forget now, it might have been Nogs who raised the point that, MMOs have been basically going this way for a considerable amount of time now. He was saying, we had a few glory years in the early 2000s where MMOs were quote unquote pure, and we all ran around like babes in the woods where, money wasn't a factor and gold buying wasn't a thing and RMT didn't exist, and we all loved MMOs and WoW was in its glory days, blah, 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 blah. But then everything changed. And not only did everything change, but the players were okay with it and the devs were obviously okay with it to make this the way that MMOs are in the future and how they're going to be. I pushed back on that point and I said, I don't really accept that in its totality. I do see what you're saying, but I'll point to the second biggest MMO out there, which is Final Fantasy XIV, as you said, Spidey, that doesn't allow RMT and is quite, aggressive in their defense against RMT. That's a modern MMO, really, at the height of its powers or what have you, that really does push back. They don't have a token. They don't have anything of that nature. So I balk at the point that this is where MMOs are going, if not where they've been for some time anyway, that just gold buying is going to be part of what we do as gamers. But we'll get into that very, very soon. It's more outside of WoW, just more MMOs, how we feel about gold buying chat. Now, having said all that, the most important person that I want to hear from, no pressure at all, Galley Boy, mate, tell me why you are of the opinion that this is a good thing.
All right, please don't set me up to fail.
No, I won't, mate. I won't.
No,
You're in a
I'm
safe
just kidding.
space. It's all good. I will.
All right.
Look, you're going to hear some pretty aggressive counterpoints from me, but none of it's personal, my friend.
All good. So let me just let me elaborate my 2-word answer. In a vacuum, WoW token bad, right? In the current state of the game, I don't think it matters that much. And the reason I say that is I'm a little bit of background. I've been playing Classic since day one on the same server, basically in the same guild since October of 2019, right? I don't really participate in GDKPs, but I know plenty of people who do. I play the game and raid on one main character, and I have an alt that I do 10 mans in the guild with, and we'll mess around and we'll do Friday nights and Act sometimes, whatever. But to make money in the game, it's fairly easy. You do your dailies, you save up. I don't really play the auction house. I don't participate in GDKPs, and I have enough money for my consumables, for the expensive vendor mounts, whatever you want, right? So I think the money aspect doesn't necessarily matter. I think the raising up in arms goes towards Blizzard, and I think it's rightfully so. So I guess that's my background there. Fair
enough. If I can, we'll go along with this one, because 2 points I want to raise just from hearing that are, well, I guess we'll get to this one first, just the last point you made. Do you think that part of this is more just a general Blizz bad kind of knee-jerk reaction from the community as opposed to being specifically pointed at the token? Is that what you mean?
I think it is Blizz bad, but token bad as well.
Right.
So yeah, that the general consensus, is that's probably what the community feels as a vibe.
Okay. Now, the next point I want to raise is, and I'm not having a go at you when I say this, because, it's definitely an opinion that I think I've read between the lines from a lot of the people who are pro this move. And like I say, guys, don't freak out. I will make arguments, for this side of, all the people who think the token is amazing. I will make arguments for you. Don't worry that this is going to be it. You know what I mean? But Galley Boy, I think the best word to throw in here would be, apathetic. I feel like I sense a form of apathy in your words, where it's more the shrug of the shoulders and the we're halfway through TBC. I'm probably not going to play Kata. Everyone's buying gold already. What do I care if they make it legal? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong with that. I'm not gonna say that I think the token is necessarily the best thing that's come to WoW, to Wrath Classic, right? I mean, obviously we have to think about the new tabard that's coming in. That's probably the best thing.
Huge.
But so I don't want you to think that I am thinking this is the best thing. But I do think at this point it doesn't matter that much.
Right. So your point is more not that this is good, but who cares?
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, fair enough. Look, that puts probably a bit more pressure on me to really step up to the plate and do the like very boisterous argument for the token. So I'll
I probably could find some reasons to say it is good though. So
that's okay.
Keep me in that camp.
I'll do it now, and you can piggyback off of anything I say if you feel like it needs more extrapolation. But God, I feel dirty for what I'm about to say because I disagree with all of it, very much so. But I want you other guys to listen into this, and we can go back and forth just here at the initial stages about good versus bad. All right. Everything I say from this point forward for the next, I'll let you know when I'm out of character. Everything I say from this point forward, the disclaimer is Josh does not actually hold these beliefs, but I will voice them nonetheless. Everyone's saying do the voice, but the voice is only good in 10-second spurts, and this is actually going to be like perhaps a minutes long thing. So I probably shouldn't do the voice. Everyone wants me to do that. Oh, look, here's why the token's good. It's because I won't do that. It'll get really annoying. All right, guys, here we go. The crowd that thinks the token is a good thing is saying it for these very particular reasons, and they are as follows. Number one, look, everyone knows I'm not, reinventing the wheel here by saying this, that gold buying has been rife ever since Classic came out. Its popularity has, yes, steadily increased over time. Maybe not everyone and their mother was doing it in Classic, but, pretty close to it. It has only grown from strength to strength through TBC and Wrath. The international gold farmers, the domestic gold farmers that we always meme and joke about have been absolutely making a, livable wage, so to speak. And sorry, I can hear Tim yelling at me from California. Very unethical background behind gold farming and bots as well. Yes, we know that those guys don't necessarily see much cash. We've talked about that before on the show, but outside of that, I'm saying the industry is probably the better way to put it. The industry has been making significant money for some time now. So if we've had an avenue for gold buying to happen illegally, in quotes, why not just make it official? This is the moment where you step up to the plate, and, kudos to Blizzard for doing so. Maybe it was a little bit too late, but they got there eventually. As you say, if Kata is coming, this is the time to do it. Step up now, just bite the bullet and say, look, it works in retail. Let's just do it to Classic. Classic era is there for you. We're not bringing it to Classic era. All you doomers, stop with your, when's it coming to Classic era next? Blah, blah, blah. It's just Wrath. Fucking deal with it. It'll be in Kata. It works. It just straight up mitigates bots and gold buying. What will happen now is people will stop going to the third-party websites. They'll stop buying their gold there. They'll do it officially through us. No one has to get banned because you're all doing it anyway. You don't have to live in fear of your account being shut down. The community has clearly said this is the way that they want to play the game en masse. So we just figure, Blizzard clearly figures they would relieve the headache and do it this way. It really is truly just easier for everyone. And what is the harm in making it legal if it is as rife as all of you know? Whether or not, the guys on this call have bought gold or not, we can all accept that a very, very large number of players do, particularly the ones that are still playing Wrath. We talk about people that have maybe walked away from Wrath over the last few months, and we're kind of left with the more hardcore, raid loggy, really in it to win it crowd. Those are the people who are really going to enjoy this change. So why not make the game catered to them? Classic players who are a bit more upset by this, either number one, probably aren't playing WoW Wrath Classic anymore, or number two, were playing it so little that maybe their heart's not really in it and they don't care. So we don't, I keep saying we like I work for Blizzard. I'm sorry, I don't mean to do that. I'm trying to talk as though I'm coming at it from as a Blizzard representative here. So it's one of those things where why wouldn't Blizzard make the game catered to the fucking crowd that's playing it? They want to buy gold. Just let them do it. They've clearly decided that they are, they want to live in a world where farming mats and doing the long slog and shit for gold and resources in the game is a way of the past. They want to live in the modern era. Retail is the modern era. We're bringing this element of retail and the modern game, a modern play style for MMOs to modern players. So I really feel dirty after saying all of that. Again, if you just tuned in, I don't actually believe everything I just said, but I really want to put it in very somewhat eloquent terms for the people who have this argument. And look, I'm not calling you an asshole for having this argument. I just greatly disagree with you. But anyway, I'm still in character, so that's what I believe. Guys, having heard that, who wants to jump in? Does anyone agree or disagree with me?
I mean, I vehemently disagree with you. It's the job. It's the job of the developers to protect the players from themselves trying to just skip from actually playing the game.
Preach.
And I was going to say, and I understand that more people are playing this game are more time poor than they are wealth poor. But I'm just of the opinion that the old school MMOs that people wanted to bring back it's about the grind. It's about the time you put in, not the fucking money that you pay to just skip the gameplay.
Yep. Gonna have to agree with that. With Mike.
Go.
I think the whole point of it is that it devalues the time spent in the game. Like when everything just becomes, if I can spend 10 hours farming herbs or dailies to get the gold to buy my consumables and I go to raid with the guild, sure, it's probably not going to affect me at all if other people are legally buying gold and or however you phrase it, right? It's not going to affect me in that manner, but I feel like a fool if that's how I decide to play the game. If I'm going to spend 10 hours doing these things and make, I don't know, 4,000 gold, or I can just spend 15 or 20 bucks and get 10,000 gold, like it's just not, it makes me feel like an idiot if I choose to play the game legitimately, right?
So all these arguments are basically copy paste from when the WoW token was introduced originally, right? And all these arguments can be made against the token in retail. So the curious thing about this is that we have this, 3 expansions or so earlier than we would have if we followed the quote formal Blizzard timeline. I don't know if that changes anybody's argument, but from that standpoint, I'm kind of with Galley Boy, where I'm like, they were going to do it at some point here. And I guess it was just, at some point along the era of Classic, assuming we continue going forward, or Classic is just delayed retail. So I don't know how many of those arguments, basically what argument would apply to this that doesn't apply for the arguments that have already been had for retail. Because what Mike and Parallax have said is true, but it's also what's been hashed out already, and yet, there it is.
Okay.
So you're not wrong.
Yeah, go, Dave.
About
yep.
the arguments. They're
No,
all old arguments. They are. And I'm the first to admit that. And I wasn't so down on the token before, like when it came out in retail back, whatever year that was.
That was in Legion 2015.
Right. So yeah, so I didn't feel as negatively about it then as I do now, having seen how it's played out in retail. And I think the main argument that's different this time is that the main impetus for bringing back Classic, or the main thing that I think Blizzard stumbled upon by accident in bringing back Classic, is bringing back people who had left the game because they didn't like all of the changes, including the WoW token, including LFR and all that stuff. And so they recreated the game to give those of us an option that wanted to go back to that simpler time. And now, having done that, they are rushing, 2 expansions sooner into most of the same mistakes, which means they're catering to the same player base, which means they're going to lose the same people that they have won back over the last 4 or 5 years with Classic. Now, to their credit, there's a big disclaimer on the webpage where they announced this that says does not apply to Classic Era. So Era servers are still preserved from this. So there's your out for the Blizzard team. But at the same time, I think if they're, and maybe they don't really care if they can drag that player base into Cataclysm or not. But making this change guarantees it for me. Like, I already wasn't planning to play Cataclysm, but now I'm definitely out. And I'm not planning to hop back into Wrath either, even though I have toyed with the idea from time to time.
Well, this is again in character. This is part of my in character pushback to that one, Pastor Dave. And sorry, Dom, I'll throw it to you straight after this question. My question for you, Dave, is: are they really losing people though? We talk about players being turned off by this. Oh my God, they're going to lose the Classic crowd. But the people who are really so deeply disgusted by this news, I mean, I would argue they're not playing Wrath Classic right now. I would argue they're happy over on Hardcore or Era doing what they do. And that it's going to be such a slim percentage of players that are currently playing Wrath Classic that actually are offended by this, that it won't hurt Blizzard in the slightest. So when you say they'll leave, I would say the crowd that's currently playing Wrath, the hardcore crowd, absolutely not.
I agree with that.
And
sorry, go.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to have to bow out after kind of replying to that. And that is the one piece of credit that I will give them, is that they are keeping Era the same. I mean, presuming they do the same for Hardcore and any fresh Era servers that they release in future, as long as they provide that haven, that refuge for those few of us. And maybe I'm just poor meing, and maybe that really isn't just that few of us, but for those who want that, it is there. We can still do it if we want. And I hear what you're saying, and like I said at the beginning, yes, but no, and wherever you wanna take that.
Fair enough.
But it's not. I don't know. It's not gonna get me more engaged, and I have a feeling that the majority of the people who are still playing and who are still with Wrath are already probably bouncing between Dragonflight and Wrath, and will bounce back and forth between Dragonflight and Cataclysm, chasing whatever's next for raids and challenges and all that. And if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But those of us who are not up for it need a space too, if Blizzard still wants our money.
Very good. Mate, do you want to take this opportunity to bow out? Thanks so much for joining us, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you cut out for a second there, Josh, but pleasure as always. Great to hear everybody's takes. I look forward to listening to the rest of the podcast on my commute in a couple of days. So bless you guys all. Take care. Have fun hashing it out. And and it's a pleasure to be here.
Plug the Twitch. Plug the Twitch.
Oh yeah, Pastor Dave plays. Pastor Dave plays. You can find me there. And what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was going to say Baba's name was invoked at the beginning of the podcast. Shout out to Baba. Sean Carnes, we miss you. We love you. I'm glad you're doing something you're enjoying. But whenever you're back making content, we're waiting for you. So hope you're listening. Catch you guys later.
Here. Very well said, mate. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later. All right, Dom, mate, let me throw you into the mix. Thank you so much for putting your hand up and being so patient there. You messaged me and said, Josh, oh my God, I love these kinds of conversations. Please get me in. Mate, now's your chance just to catch you up. Everything you've heard so far, are you for or against the token? And any thoughts on everything you've heard up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, thanks so much. I'm super excited to be here. I'm exclusively playing Wrath. I don't play any other MMOs. I'm not switching between retail. Like, I'm raiding 4 to 5 nights a week doing this. Like, I love the classic. I started in 2004, and back then it was insane, right? Like we saw a screenshot of somebody who had 800 gold, and we were like, oh my god, you guys are rich. And now it's evolved to where like I'm running my own GDKPs. Like I have multiple tunes that are basically in the best gear that you can buy, and the people that are here in the community now, like there is the element that really wanted to be purist, wanted to, and I was with them, right? Like hashtag no changes. But once we got into hashtag no changes, I think those of us who really wanted to play this and wanted to sustainably play this without it really like grinding us and burning us out, found a better system to play it with. And I think that like the GDKPs and that sort of an environment, I understand the idea that it's a pay to win, right? But I've been doing Old War consistently every week since it came out multiple times, and I can tell you that you can buy your character and you can have millions of dollars and buy millions of dollars worth of gold, but you can't. That doesn't mean you can play your character, especially in Old War. And if they keep the content where they're at with difficulty, and I feel like Old War could use a nerf, but that's a whole other conversation. I enjoy the content. My runs, like all of our runs, are 9 out of 9. We kill Alkalon every week. We make plenty of gold, but I think that the WoW token is a positive. I'm not saying that it's something that I would have instituted myself, but having it here kind of number one sets like a universal gold standard for what gold is going to cost, and it's not set by an outside party, it's set by Blizzard, and then internally it's set by the players, and it gives access to people here who were very fearful about buying gold the access to do that without the repercussions. And I think that it will strengthen the community that's actually playing right now, not like the theoretical community or the community of people who are going to come back when they go back away from these changes. Like it's the people who are currently paying money and spending thousands of hours a week playing this game.
Mate, very, very well said. Let me bring up 2 points from what you've said that we can get everyone to chime in on if they want. Point number one that you just ended up on is a really important question of who is this for? And you started to touch on that, and I want to dive on a bit deeper on that one. But then point number two is then, we can't talk about this unless we talk about the marriage with GDKP. And I think someone said the word GDKP a little bit earlier, but we kind of glossed over it. We're going to have to get pretty deep, and it's not... People don't like it when I bring up the blame game on the show. Is this the dev's fault or the player's fault? And I understand why, but in sort of dancing around the blame game, people are still sort of wondering how we got here. And it really is by virtue of not only players' desire to not have to spend their time farming gold anymore, but also the popularity of GDKPs, the desire of players to constantly involve themselves with GDKPs and use the gold that they are either buying or earning to get items in game quite easily and at their own whim. Basically, they decide if they get an item or not by virtue of how much money they actually have in game. And how GDKPs basically might affect the game moving forward now that the token is here. So two very separate and distinct points that I want to press you a bit further on. So I might start, we'll put the GDKP thing aside for a second, because I'm really glad that you said that you lead some GDKPs. You'll have some great takes as a veteran GDKP enjoyer and leader. I should tell you this about me. I am not a GDKP player. I've been very against them for many years now, even though we've had many conversations on the show about, the positives of GDKP. I personally am thinking it's a negative. I did one in Classic and I said never again, but that's a whole other conversation. So just to let you know where I'm at on them. But regardless, when I say who is this for, you've started to hit the nail on the head. Because again, we discussed this very, very briefly in the Countdown Discord a couple of hours ago, where I brought up the point that people are saying, why now? And who wants this? It's very clear to me that the people playing Wrath right now, not the people who were necessarily there at launch, but the people playing right now, the people who have dealt with the fact that there's no RDF. They've dealt with the fact that there is copious amounts of gold buying in the game and that there are bots. They're still there. They don't care. They're still there. These are your hardcore Wrath enthusiasts in the hundreds of thousands around the world. My argument was that we're now getting to a crossover point. This population is not necessarily the same population that played Classic back in 2019. Classic 2019 was generally 100% or 99% made up of your real vanilla enthusiasts. Now, over time, as we've progressed through TBC and into Wrath, we have started to get more of a crossover and like a cross-pollination of WoW enjoyers in terms of, the Wrath babies and people who currently play retail. And I can't stress this enough. There's nothing fucking wrong with liking retail. I really don't like it when people just live and breathe to shit on retail WoW. Look, it's a different MMO. Who gives a fuck if other people like it? People can like what they like. I personally think Dragonflight is fine. I'm playing a fucking Legion private server right now, of all things, and loving it, bizarrely. But anyway, that's another story. My point is just that we're getting all these people playing Wrath who kind of like the old way of doing things and also like the new way of doing things, and Wrath has become a weird little Frankensteinian hybrid of the two in an odd way, and people saying Wrath was actually the beginning of retail rather than the end of Classic, which I think is a fantastic way to term it. So sorry, I'm spewing absolute verbal diarrhea here at you, Dom, but my point is just that when we talk about who is this for and why now, it does actually make a lot of sense to introduce the token now from Blizzard's perspective, given who is playing the game. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think that, first of all, I haven't played this current iteration of retail. Shadowlands kind of burnt me out on that, so I took a pass. But I have a bunch of friends who play, and I love that they enjoy it, right? Like I'm never going to knock retail because it's kept the game alive. It's where their creative vision goes, and that's fantastic. It's kind of like, I'm not going to play other MMOs either. Not because I don't like them, but just because that's not what it brings enjoyment to me. And Wrath, especially as it is now, and I've been here. I was super excited. I was a hardcore Andy, ready for the Classic era, like really excited about it. And then, you get into it and you're like, man, like 50% of this was because I love this game, and the other 50% is because it was nostalgic, right? I was living in that time, and my life outside of the game was different, so my view of the game is different. So we look at everything with rose-tinted goggles, right? Like the past is fantastic. This was the best that it's ever been, and then we get to it, and we're like, okay, some things could change. And for me, one of my biggest, I've been so vocal and loud on the forums about how the LFG tool is so inferior compared to RDF, but it is what it is, right? Like we have it. I either choose to play and have fun or I don't. And introducing the WoW token now makes a lot of sense, because if they're planning to push into Cataclysm, and I am still completely undecided whether I'm going to play Cataclysm as it is, but if they want to push, they have to keep the people that they have now. They're not going to draw in, like, Cataclysm isn't like Wrath. They're not going to draw in the same crowd by saying, we're going to release Wrath. And everybody's like, holy shit, oh my god, I'm so hard right now. Like, Cataclysm is where most people are like, eh. So I think that it's a calculated business decision. And like most of their decisions, it's either great for the players or terrible for the players, but it's always good for Blizzard. This is one of the instances where I think it accomplishes both. They get their chunk of the pie that they created, and we get the ability to get gold safely and legally. And I have yet to buy gold, but being able to do it with the GDKPs, I joined my guild in TBC and was able to join and make enough money doing them to then start making my own. And we have a whole community, right? Like I have people in my GDKPs who are more consistent and more prepared than characters that I've had in any of my raids previously. So, the community, I think, as it stands right now, they're catering to the people who are actively playing and paying money for, when they did race changes. And half of my guild switched from whatever stupid race we decided we wanted to play in Classic to Trolls, because we all wanted Berserking. Like my rogue got changed. I think that they know who's playing, and it is an unfortunate, that there's an intermingling of the new age WoW and the old age WoW, but I think that a lot of people look at these as like retail changes, and a lot of the changes that they've made I consider to be more quality of life changes. It's things that sure you associate with being more retail oriented, therefore it's a bad thing in the classic, style of the game, but at the same time it's things that have made retail successful. So I think there has to be a happy medium between the two, or you just go full retail. But as it stands, I feel like this decision, even if it's unpopular with the hardcore crowd, is more catered to the people actually bringing, money into the game right now.
Too easy. Let me throw this out to you other guys, and we'll come back to Dom in a second on that second point about GDKPs that I wanted to raise. But just before we get there, how about this tangent? In talking about gateway drugs and, the biggest indicator the Cata Classic might be coming is the token coming now, blah, blah, blah. One thing that I'm thinking of is, do you think that another reason that Blizzard may have implemented the token now at this point in time is a fear that prices may have become so exorbitant or inflated on gear or particularly pricey items on the auction house that a new player coming to a Cataclysm Classic might be so out of the game that they basically have to have the option of the token. I know that mat prices are very, very cheap on Wrath right now, and ironically the token will jack those prices up and inflation will become a thing. But in terms of like the more expensive shit in game, do you think that this is a helping hand to new Cata players in any way?
I think someone alluded to that earlier, that no one's really coming back for Cata, and that's generalizing, and I shouldn't do that, but I don't think that's where their mind is worrying about the people who will come back for Cata, because anyone who's playing Wrath right now will be more than fine for Cata if they do that. So I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Some really interesting points just flying in the chat, and I'll bring this one up now, even though it's something I wanted to come to later, and I will come back to the GDKP thing, but just really quickly now, some great points are being raised from Booth and other people in the Discord as well about obviously now that this is here, Blizzard, as they've said, have done it to mitigate botting and gold buying. Gren sent out a tweet, and we might even get into that later, where I'm going to paraphrase. He said, look, you're never going to win the war against botting and RMT and MMOs, but what we can do is try to mitigate it, and this is one way to do so, by bringing in the WoW token. An interesting thing from that is, I agree with Booth. I don't think the people buying gold from third-party websites right now are going to stop going to their particular dealer just because Blizzard has now made it official. People are already, within, minutes of this thing going live, people were already comparing prices and figuring out that Blizzard's deal was actually the worst deal. Now, granted, it comes with the security of it being official. Your account won't get banned because you're buying from Blizzard. It's totally safe. But they're not banning accounts for fucking buying gold, from third-party websites anyway. So you could create the argument that it's 100% safe both ways. So why not go to the person that's giving you the best fucking deal, which is not Blizzard? So that's a relatively humorous side of it. But then also on top of that, I think Zoran added in that there's actually a way now, I believe, to flip all of this and start making money off of buying buying gold from third-party websites, selling it, getting yourself a token. I don't know how it all works. I really know nothing about tokens, but basically, someone will explain it better than me. Basically, they're already figuring out a way to fucking make real-life money, $4 or $5 at a time off of flipping gold and flipping tokens through all the different avenues, which is fucking ridiculous to me, and I accept that it's a thing, but the fact that can happen, I can hear someone wants to talk about that. Go nuts.
I was just going to say, coming from this world, I don't think that's going to happen, because right now, sure, your third-party sellers are going to be cheaper. However, the majority of people buying are either whales. I would say whales constitute a vast majority, so people who have millions of gold or hundreds of thousands of gold, right? But I think that this does two things. One, it gives access to people who don't have that kind of gold, and were unafraid or unwilling to risk going to a third party. Now they have an avenue to get into the GDKPs. And I think at the same time, you'll see that the gold seller's price is going to revolve around the Blizzard token, because it's like the US in the world economy, right? Like we, for at least now, are keeping the dollar as the standard, right? Like the Blizzard token is going to be the standard. So the people that are selling it outside of those normal channels are going to have to revolve around that, because there's going to be enough of a dip in what they're making that, because of the people switching to buying it safely, that I think that you will see the prices like they'll more gradually come into line with each other. And I also think that the gold sellers aren't going to sell gold at a point where they're going to, like, they're not going to keep it so cheap that they can allow people to buy gold outside of it, transfer it to WoW tokens, and then buy swag from Blizzard or games or Game Time or whatever, right? Like they're gonna bridge that margin to the point where there's virtually no difference, and it's not happened yet, obviously, because it just came out today. But I would say in the next week, it'll level.
All right, Dom, we'll throw it to the others. Get ready for the GDKP talk though, because we'll come there real soon. Mike, let me throw it over to you for a second, and let me just say, number one, have you heard anything just recently that you want to reply to? But then also, the one thing I want to throw in there is I think you mentioned, or someone else mentioned, how funny it is to hear all this talk again many years after we heard it the first time. We're basically just replicating all these things that we went through before. And, I can't help but be drawn to, the True Detective meme and then the quote, "The time is a flat circle." Well, I'm probably even butchering the reference. I don't know. But either way, history repeats itself, fucking blah, 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 blah. It really is funny that we've come to the point, and again, whether we're pointing fingers at the players or the devs, that we are literally doing the same thing over again. We bitched about the monetization of retail, and Classic was this safe haven. And despite all of that, Blizzard couldn't get out of their own way, or the players couldn't get out of their own way to basically let the same things happen again. Do you sit back and laugh at that, just in that regard?
No, I think it's just really fucking depressing that Blizzard doesn't actually care enough about the game at this point to preserve anything of what it meant to be, like, an old school MMO anymore at this point. And if history is literally just repeating itself in the most depressing way possible.
Anyone else on the history repeating aspect of it? That's okay. Sorry, go for it, mate.
Go ahead, Parallax.
Yeah, okay. Just a little bit. Like, I mean, realistically, yeah, we do kind of see things play out the same way that they played in retail while that was live. It's like there's a reason why these features were implemented into the game, right? It's a lot of times they saw a need or demand, and they came up with a solution, and they're just rehashing that again, right? They didn't. It came out for a reason, I guess. Really, is the point I'm making.
I guess the point there, though, is, Spidey, I might direct this one at you if that's okay. Piggybacking off of what Parallax just said, Blizzard had the roadmap for how to avoid the mistakes of the past. Like we always say, it's not on the, as much as I want to sit here and bitch, and I will because I'm an idiot, bitch at the players for being fuckwits, for buying gold for years and helping to push us in this direction. The marriage of the gold lust and gold buying and GDKPs and everything now leads to the token. But then it's still on Blizzard to police this. They are the developers. They have to put in the machinations to stop us from getting, even if it's somewhere we want to go. If it's for the good of the game, they have to stop us from getting there. Like I say, if it's for the good of the game. Yet they had the roadmap and they still turned left when it said turned right. Do you kind of laugh at that, or with monetization being a thing, it was inevitable?
I don't know that I laugh at it. It's because we're talking about that from the standpoint of it was a mistake. I'm sure they look at the historicals, they look at the data, they look at the revenue, and they do not consider it a mistake. I don't think when the token was introduced that it was any sharp drop off in subscribers as a result. I think, the point that Dom made is those of us who are upset with it, we're not the majority of the players. We're not the ones to whom this is tailored toward. And that I also, to your point about, that, do you want to, you're not, I know you don't play the blame game, but like, would someone theoretically blame the players for enabling the situation that forces Blizzard to do it? I also do laugh at that because, again, my prior point of that's not how other MMOs responded to it. Other MMOs have held strong and not been like, yeah, we'll partake in that. And I think that it kind of infuriates me, and from the standpoint of it feels like some of the conversations being had today blaming consumers for inflation. I'm just like, go. I don't want to get bleeped out on the show, but anyway, that's where I stand.
Too easy.
Just a little counterpoint,
yeah, go
Josh, if you
Parallax.
don't mind. Yeah, so I mean, I agree with what Spidey's saying. It's really like you don't want to blame the players, but in some sense, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if this feature doesn't exist in the game, like we almost created ourselves, and I just lump myself into that because we being all part of the same community. Like we created ourselves, and then we kind of see it happen, and then we complain when it comes out, right? It's like we're almost subconsciously asking for things. I mean, there's been the RMT market for since Classic came out day one, and that's modern gaming in a sense, that's modern mentality. I think there's a split in the community though, obviously, but
well, there is, because when you say we Parallax, like you're saying we introduce the demand, but then we complain about it. I don't think those are the same circles within there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think this comes up when we're talking about changes for potential Classic, and you have the hardcore. I want the game like 2004, no questions about it. Then you have someone come in and say, well, I think a lot of these changes are quality of life, and I just want to say, as someone who plays Wrath, and I've been dabbling in Era too, the players want what they want, and not everyone wants the same thing. I know Mike sounds like a 2004 Andy. I want the game how it was back in the day. If you log on to Era right now, trade chat is want to buy boosts, want to sell boosts, and that's player. I mean, there must be some kind of demand for it, right? So there must be some kind of demand for buying gold if people do it, and that's just how people play the game. Not everyone, but people out there do it.
Right. So how many people here have read the WoW Diaries book that what's his face put out?
John Stats. No,
John, yeah.
Yep.
So he has multiple sections in there about protecting players from themselves, and we spent so long on this because players will take the easiest path, even if it isn't the most fun, and we explicitly want them to have fun. So bemoaning that Blizzard is no longer taking that approach, I think is a very clear representation of the fact that is no longer the ethos and drivers being handed down, if not coming from the developers. Like, I don't want to shit on the developers. I have no idea what their motivations are. To quote Ghostbusters, I've worked in the private sector. I know what it's like. They expect results. So it's probably, the bosses and management driving this down to developers, and, the shift in prioritization where it's like, yeah, so they're taking the biggest shortcuts. But what will that make us this quarter?
yeah, like that is not the status quo for developing a game in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like their meta has changed since 2004. Like if you were to release Vanilla WoW as it came out in 2004, I don't think you just wouldn't get the pull because there's no nostalgia factor. There's no other like triggering of the memories that you're trying to get people in, right? They're just gonna compare it to what's also out there, the competitor at the time, where I can go in and get a quick dopamine fix and just beat the game very fast and then move on to the next one. I mean, the attention span in general in gaming has gone down, right? So the developers know that. They know that they can just go in, make a quick buck, it's like box office hit. You know, they just go in, make that $1 billion box office hit. Fuck it, forget about it. Make another one.
Make another live action Disney remake. Let's do it. Let's do it. Go, go, go.
Yep, pretty much, and that's what it is. So
Just on something you said, Parallax, just in terms of, like I said, this is why I do it sort of tentatively when we play the blame game. Not that blaming is, gets us anywhere, but, Spidey talked about it, you talked about it, and the subreddit's talking about it at the moment. I've historically on the show been like, 95% of the blame should go to the devs. It's their job to protect us from ourselves. But I still have always been like, that small portion of blame I feel sometimes can also be attributed to the players, in terms of you still subjectively have that desire to do something shitty because it gets you ahead in the game. It's maybe not good, quote unquote, but you'll do it anyway because you want to get ahead. And this is like, buying gold and whatnot. This is still a player sitting at their computer going like, I'm going to do something a bit naughty because I know that Blizzard won't stop me from doing it. So then it's okay. And I've always historically been like, well, no, you still get a little bit of the blame for wanting to do that. Like, I haven't jumped on those websites and bought gold because I'm like, even though there's no police around, I still have an element of my being that says ethically or morally I shouldn't do that. It's probably a bad thing. But like, as we say, maybe the joke is on that player, the goody two shoes player at the end of the day, because they're the one missing out. But I've always sort of said, I feel comfortable pointing a little bit of a finger at the players as well.
I agree. No, I mean, and it definitely every player has, if they're in the community and those are pressures that they're facing, like you're going to have a fork in the road where you decide, am I going to be part of that, or am I going to just stand my ground and try to make this something that maybe it will never become? Like maybe it's too far gone and I can't choose not to give in to those things, but at the end of the day, like if you're applying the developers protecting the players against themselves, I mean, that is fundamentally, I think, no matter what era you live in, it is their duty to do that. Simply because in other types of games, I don't mean to divert the conversation too much, but a game like CS:GO, where cheating is so rampant, or at least was, that it became almost like every game you got into, you were facing somebody who was cheating against you. That brings on an external pressure that, okay, in order to actually play this game and fucking enjoy it, excuse my language, I have to cheat too, and that's the only option that I have. But Valve knows, Valve obviously, CS:GO, they know that that is their duty to protect the integrity of the game at all costs. Because no matter what happens, if they ever ended up in a place where every game you get into is all cheaters, all gold buyers, whatever you want to apply to that, they've lost the battle completely, and then their game is inevitably going to die. And at that point, they make no money.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, and to address what you said, Josh, I don't think it's ever fair for anybody to place blame solely on either party. It takes both to make it a reality, right? The Blizzard would not be doing it if there wasn't a demand for it, and it's the player's fault that there is a demand. Ultimately, though, the buck stops with Blizzard, because if they choose not to implement the token, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't exist as a sanctioned way of gold buying, right? Regardless of the demand. It's players can't just make that a sanctioned way happen. Yes, we can make the illegal way happen, but you don't get more than a 3-day ban for that, because that's what I've heard people get. Temp ban, not perma ban.
All right. Dom, I just want to bring it back to you, and then we'll hear from everyone about what you say about GDKPs, because we've got to kind of bore into this one a little bit. You said you run some GDKPs. I'm sure the other guys on here are GDKP enthusiasts or have run them in the past as well. It's something where we all know what the deal is. We all know people have been buying gold en masse for a considerable amount of time in the game. We all know that gold is in these GDKPs, and I've never really enjoyed it that much. And Dom, you might say this, I'm not having a sort of premeditated go at you, but I've always balked when GDKP leaders or enthusiasts have sort of said like, there's no bought gold in my GDKP. It's like, let's not be naive. Come on now. Like as much as you try to create a nice pure environment, the chances are that there's gold getting cleaned there. You know what I mean? People buy it, they bring it to your GDKP, and they spend in big sums. We've all known about it, and we've all, the people who go to GDKPs have come to terms with it a very long time ago, because number one, they're either buying gold too, or number two, they don't care what other players do. They've farmed their gold ethically, and they'll buy their items the way that, they'll profit if other people swiping their card. What do they care? So my question is, it's very clear to me that the popularity and prevalence of GDKPs has had a huge say in the token coming to be right now. Number one, do you think that's a fair assessment? And then number two, are you still okay with that, I guess?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't have thin skin. Like we all are part of the same community, and I love it. And were I more of an idealist, I would still be in the same camp that you guys are, because it does devalue the community of the game. It breaks it down to a more monetary based system. But I have to work with what I'm given, not what I want to be given. And this is what Blizzard gave us. And I think that it's the same thing as anything, like any currency that you use in the world, right? If you're a part of something, eventually you're going to touch money that has touched drugs or blood diamonds or something else, right? Like all money is tainted. And it's an obvious thing that happens. But it's such I think it's so many people are doing it that it has kind of lost its sour for a lot of people, and I think that a lot of people just don't care, right? Like, I'm not doing it. I don't care if somebody else is doing it. The consequences for that action is 100% on them. And I think that we also have to take into account that realistically, and this is my opinion because I've been doing this, and this is why I like doing this, Blizzard created this monster. And they created this monster by having an antiquated loot system where we went like 26 weeks not getting a dragon spine trophy. Like, they've created a system where it's so based on luck whether you get the gear that you're trying to get. You can put in 10,000 hours and never get the gear that you want because it's not guaranteed to you unless you are the master looter or in the loot council or you have gold. And I think that when you get down to it, people want to get paid to play this game, and they get paid in epics, they get paid in DPS, they get paid in healing, or their legendaries. They get paid that way, and that's the dopamine release for them, and they're not willing to sacrifice that just because the rules are against using the currency in game. If people are willing to accept it and they have a 100% chance of getting the piece that they want, and a lot of these people, I think there's this misconception that these people in GDKPs are just, they're all whales and they all bought their accounts. Like, a lot of these people, including mine, like, they have hundreds of days played. Like, we play this consistently every day, all week long. And it feels nice knowing that I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to get my piece of loot if it happens to drop. It's going to happen and I'm going to get it. And I think that's the allure. That's what people enjoy about the system itself, which is why I think that, you look, I'm on Fairlina, right? Stacks has thousands upon thousands of people who are running, doing, and participating in GKPs a week. And for them, this is just a safer, easier currency grab.
Fair enough. I guess just to piggyback off of that, sorry, someone else is going to jump in. Just give me 1 second. The winky sort of joke, if you will, amongst the GDKP community for a long time has always been that, it's the other guys buying the gold, not me. According to GDKP players, no one's ever bought gold because so few of them will actually openly, even though some players do, relatively few of them will come out and be like, yeah, I'm a gold buying whale. I do it all the time. Everyone else is like, oh, well, I got my gold the right way. It's all these other guys that are the problem. But I just, yeah, I sort of laugh at that a little bit. But was someone else going to jump in before? That's okay. Let me ask this question. Mike, let me throw it to you and ask this. This is a very hard one to definitively give an answer to. I'm asking you to be a bit of a Nostradamus here or whatever, or go back to an alternate reality and look into the future. But do you think that had Blizzard, for whatever reason, I'm not saying, they should have done this or shouldn't have done this, in an alternate reality where Blizzard bans GDKPs in Classic, do you think we'd be getting the WoW token now?
God, I wish I wasn't intelligent enough of a man to give a good answer to that question, but I would say absolutely not. I think just the people participating in GDKPs are just how I want to try to say this politely.
You want to be nice just because they're here.
Don't be nice on my account, dog. Spit it out.
I think people who play GDKPs are just we're playing a completely different game for me. That they just care just about a monetary transaction to get loot rather than to raid with people who you enjoy, and the loot is just an excuse as an incentive for people to keep playing. I think GDKPs were the worst thing to ever happen to WoW, and I it's just that they're so tainted with gold buying that just participating in a GDKP is just buying gold in my eyes.
I want to avoid turning this, and you're right, you're fine to say all that, Mike. I want to avoid turning this into a GDKP podcast, though. I really am just diving down this tangent because we've covered all this before, Dom. Trust me, on the show. But it's so important to talk about this in relation to the token. I'll ask the same thing to Parallax and Galley Boy. In a world, and Spidey, in a world where you think, in a world where Blizzard banned GDKPs, do you think we would be here where we are now with the WoW token? Parallax?
Go ahead, Galley Boy. You can go.
All right. I think I'll take it a step further and said if they crack down on gold buying, the GDKPs would be more manageable, and you could go to a GDKP and not have to have 4 different characters hold the pot because it's over 800,000 gold. So I think the gold buying really made the GDKP culture kind of, I don't want to say toxic, but the way it is, because I do think GDKP players are playing a different game, right? Unless you are participating in GDKPs heavily, there's no reason to have a lot of money. I mean, you have one vendor mount that's 16K, the Mechanahog, which is 14 to 16K. And other than that, you have your raid consumes and a couple BOEs if you want to get start a fresh character. So I think had they cracked down on the gold buying, the GDKPs would be manageable. People would still do them because, again, people want to go to a raid, have that opportunity to buy the gear that they want because whether that's how they like to play or they're benched that week, whatever it is. So I think the gold buying becomes a problem before the GDKPs are a problem, but because the gold buying was so rampant, the GDKPs got out of control, which also made the token become here.
You've started to touch on a point that, Parallax, I'll throw it to you, mate. I'll just add this in. Gally, you started to add in a point that I touch on a lot, where GDKP enjoyers will very, very, very regularly invoke the phrase, if gold buying didn't exist, GDKPing is the perfect loot system. I have taken such issue with that statement for so many years now because I'm just like, it's an if that cannot exist, and thus it should not be brought up. Because when you go, if there was no gold buying, but there always will be gold buying in MMOs, so just don't even bother raising the point that in this perfect, beautiful world where, we don't have inflated bank accounts because we can't buy gold and people are actually doing GDKPs with reasonable amounts of money. Yeah, it does sound wonderful, I'm sure, if you're into that kind of thing, but it's just never going to be. So I personally don't dive down that rabbit hole too far. But anyway, sorry, I'm ranting. Parallax, you go for it, mate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Gally Boy's saying. Is that the gold buying made entering GDKPs a lot less manageable. Because in a vacuum, right? Like say a guild used GDKP as their loot system, you could replace gold with any other currency if it were farmable outside the raid, and it still isn't as toxic as it could be if you're entering the scene without the gold, right? Like if you're constantly bidding on items within the gold, that gold never leaves the guild, or I'm sorry, within the guild, and it never leaves the guild, then it's just constantly circulating around, and then it doesn't really ever actually inflate to such a astronomical number that it forces people to want to buy it outside so that they can get the loot. Like somebody like me, I don't really run GDKPs. I've done a couple back in Vanilla Classic, but I've been in a guild since TBC and Wrath, so I don't pug them. But in the event that I were to lose my guild and need to still kind of continue on and want to play, I mean, I have 600 gold on my character right now. Like I don't do dailies and things. I just kind of get my mats from the guild. If I wanted to try to get into those GDKPs, it's how many runs is it going to take me to get enough to buy a Voldrathar or something like that, right? I don't know what the payouts are like, 15k, something like that. It's going to pressure me into if I want to get that loot right now in the next couple of weeks, I need to buy some gold, right? That's the only alternative. Maybe not the only one, but the most relevant alternative.
Okay, Spidey, anything from you on this one? Nope, that's okay. Dom, let me ask you this. Just very, very quickly, just as we move, well, last point on the GDKP thing. Someone raised earlier that obviously what the WoW token does is it leads to a situation where now every item in the game, because of the marriage with GDKPs and how prevalent they are, every item in the game, be it BOP or BOE, now has a real money price. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. That's basically how it works now, because you can just buy your gold, go to a GDKP, get your item if you are the highest bidder. If you're not the highest bidder, go buy more gold. You'll get your item. It's just how it's going to work. We talk about things in Wrath of the Lich King, like your Valeniers, like your upcoming Shadowmourns and what have you, and God, let the fucking bidding wars begin for Shadowmourne now, if they weren't already, which they were, quite frankly. But you sort of touched lightly on the point that can't really AFK, or you've got to be a bit of a player to go to these GDKPs. You've still got to put into the raid to be able to bid for the item. I just wanted to question that a little bit, because I was like, again, I've not done a GDKP, so I'm not going to push back too hard. You'll have to educate me. But my light understanding was that theoretically, there's still always going to be a space for the fucking horrible player that can't play the game, that just wants to pay all the money to get their item, that like they can still conceivably be carried through a GDKP in Ulduar or something. Would that be right or not?
It really depends, right? So if you in Nax, absolutely, right? We had multiple slots set aside for people who just wanted to come in and buy all the gear. I have yet to have a free spot to clear, and this is based on I raid with a consistent group of people. We all parse pretty high. It's generally the same 20 people with 4 to 5 flex people every week, but I can't take anybody who's parsing blues or greens. Like, they have to be parsing purples, because it still requires that level of play, where one fuck up will ruin us. And the longer we spend, the less time we have to finish. There have been weeks where we had been going 9 out of 9 in Algalon, and then the next week we had to do normal mode on 4 bosses because 2 of the people weren't geared enough to carry their DPS or to carry the heals that they needed to. And I think that the idea that exists is definitely true. Like, I think that that'll probably be another staple in TOGC, and I think that depending on what happens with 25-man loot and how that goes for Ulduar after this, with the end session of TOGC, I think that it's a possibility. But I also feel like there's this big idea that, and this is true for some GDKPs, right? Like, there are some GDKPs, like on our server, we have a guy who always references the Who run, because it's a guild that's called Who, and we always joke about it because they have like million gold pots, right? Like they're just ridiculous. And I'm in a main raid, right? Like I have a raid that I do every Tuesday that I'm actually doing right now while we're doing this discussion. And it's loot counseled out. There is no gold, nothing that has to do with gold in this, right? It's just a regular raid. And it is what I enjoy doing. But on the side, I like to take my characters and do the GDKP. And for me, I'm part of a large community that does a lot of this. And I have friends who want to come and do this, but they don't have, 20, 30, 50,000 gold. So for me, I'm more than happy to bring players who have less gold or don't have any gold and be like, look, as long as you can carry your DPS or your healing weight and do your job, come get paid, and then you can come back next week and buy a piece, or I can loan you some gold or whatever. Like, it's not as exclusive, I think, as the community makes it seem. And you do have them, right? Like, I'm not saying that they're not there. And to the same point, like, I know everybody says, oh, I don't buy gold. Everybody else buys gold. Like, I'm sure that people in my raids have bought or continue to buy gold. And that kind of, it is what it is. But I also challenge the idea, like, and I know this is a completely different conversation, but the people that do these runs with me, the GDKP players, that community, they don't take away from the other communities in WoW. And like it's this, like, we're all part of a vast community, and we have our own little cliques, like, high school, right? You have the GDKPers, you have the hardcore guild members, you have the classic era people. Like, they don't necessarily mean that one is better or worse than the other. And I get why there's hate for GDKPs. I don't blame anybody for being unhappy with them. It does take away from, the original reason that I started playing WoW, which was my friends. And, World of Warcraft was the coolest fucking thing that had ever been out, ever. And we just played just to have fun. But I think that the state of the world and the state of video games has changed it from, I can immerse myself in this and my friends and not be distracted, to I have a laser focus on what I want to do because I want to do 15 other things too. So
Sure.
How do I get to my end goal the fastest and easiest?
I'll give you one small form of pushback on that last point, and then we'll move on to the next talking point, guys. I know what you're saying, and you're 100% correct when you say that, like, and I'm crudely paraphrasing what you said, Dom, but like basically the we're not hurting anyone. We can live in a vacuum and kind of do our own thing, and it doesn't affect the way that you play the game. I agree. I see where you're coming from. The only issue with that, and it's not your fault, it's not the GDKP community's fault, it's just a result of fame and popularity. The byproduct of it is, and it's very akin to the world buff meta, and it doesn't matter whether you're for or against world buffs. The fact of the matter is, the popularity grows and it spreads its way through the community to the point that everybody is doing it, that now you're the fuckwit if you don't. And I've never really enjoyed the counterpoint of, if you don't like it, just do it. If you don't like it, just don't do it, because it's become so prevalent that you basically have to play the game. Like with world buffs in vanilla, every guild is like, mate, not every guild, that's a horrible generalization, but a lot of guilds are like, mate, you got to go get all your world buffs if you want to raid with us. And so it's like you say, it's a quote unquote like weird way to play the game, but it became popular and it became a thing and it spread its way through the community. And I think GDKPs are relatively analogous to world buffs in that regard, in that, again, it's a weird, quote unquote, different take on the game that started out as something niche, but then its popularity grew to the point that now, it's kind of like, if you want certain gear, mate, don't go to a guild, go to a GDKP. Do you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree that the popularity lends itself to being a larger tumor in the community. But I also recruit for my guild. I see, I don't know, probably 150 posts a day for guilds that have nothing to do with GDKPs. They're just recruiting for people to play with them in TOGC. I think that it's not even really, in my opinion, it's not even a meta. And I don't know if there's data about this. I would absolutely be ecstatic to read it if there is. But I don't feel like, coming from my vantage point, and this is just my opinion, I have no data to back it up, but basically, I don't necessarily see the meta being GDKPs. I still see the meta being guilds doing guild runs and however they do their loot in the guild runs.
Fair
And
enough. Yeah.
I mean, I just see so many people recruiting for that style of game.
Oh, I
So
don't.
it
I don't want to
just-
suggest. I don't. And for anyone wanting to flame me in the YouTube comments, just hold your horses. I don't want to suggest that like guild play regular style is dead by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, it's still like a huge part of the game. I'm more acknowledging that like the blossoming popularity of GDKPs has obviously put a noticeable change in the game.
Absolutely. And I would agree that, with the question that you asked the other guys, if GDKPs hadn't been a staple, would we be getting tokens right now? And the answer is absolutely not. There would be no reason for anyone to be buying gold in such quantities because nothing is that expensive. There is no reason other than GDKPs to have more than, 20,000 gold. And that's if you want to buy them out. Like that. But at the same time, you look at our guild uses we charge a tax for everybody who uses our guild tag and runs GDKPs. And they put that tax into the guild bank, and that guild bank funds everything for all of our raid teams. So there's multiple systems working outside of just people getting rich off of people.
Fair enough. Mike, let me throw the next talking point over to you that I want to hear from everyone on, but we'll start with you. I'm really, really interested in this one. I'm going to take us away from World of Warcraft for a second and just talk about the concept of buying power in MMOs in general and gold buying in MMOs in general. Because it really intrigued me when Nogs started talking about classic versus modern MMOs and what players might want these days, and maybe also to a certain extent what we can look towards in the future. Coming our way with big titles like your Ashes of Creations, your League of Legends MMO, all that kind of stuff in the works. It's funny to me that I don't think it's a wild suggestion to say that if I walked up to 100 MMO players and said, "How do you feel about buying power in an MMO?" 99 of them would say, "Fuck that! You shouldn't be able to do that." It then leads me to sort of say, if I were to say to you, Mike, that the next big MMO is coming and it's going to have a token system from day one, how would you feel about that?
I would be very, very hesitant. I wouldn't try to dismiss it outright because I try to be an open-minded person where I can be, but I obviously have my biases. But it would be probably erring on the side of probably not touching the game, if I'm being honest with myself.
What form of power are you comfortable with being purchasable in an MMO?
That is a good question that I've never asked myself, but I would say as little as possible.
All right, same question for everyone. Galley Boy, if the next big MMO was coming out tomorrow and it had a token system from day one, how would you feel?
Probably like Mike. I probably wouldn't be too interested in it. In terms of my general what buying is okay in an MMO, I would say strictly cosmetics, but those cosmetics should also be attainable through playing the game. So that's kind of where I sit with buying in games.
Yeah, fair enough. Parallax?
I would probably agree with the last two. I would probably err on the side of not playing it only because of that constant external pressure, right? I mean,
Yep.
I'd want to play the game legitimately, but I would always feel in the back of my head that I could just circumvent this by throwing my card at it. So,
Yep. Spidey?
I would laugh it off for a slightly different reason, to be like, what hubris do you have that you feel your game is good enough to warrant this out the gate? Like that's something that happens after there's enough of a demand for it. So it would be the same as like putting loot boxes or anything else straight into a game. I would just I wouldn't bother with it for that reason.
Okay. Dom, how about you?
I mean, if it looks like something that I would enjoy, I would try it. But I don't like. I don't want to get the idea out there that I like the the money trading system, right? Like if it wasn't in the game, I would be okay to still play it if I enjoyed the game. But I don't like the idea, right? Like I don't like the idea of pay to win. And if they hadn't already implemented it in WoW and like made it a staple, like I wouldn't be doing it in any other game.
Dom is just making lemonade, right? He was given lemons, he's making lemonade.
You're not wrong. Like these are the cards I've dealt. I might as well be able to fund
And
my extra alts.
I can respect that. You know, I see nothing wrong with that logic.
Well,
I agree. Like we all operate in the system we're given.
let me throw this out to everyone though, because I'm very cheekily edging towards the set that was all set up for this next question, which is, you know, all of you answered pretty much as I expected, and like I said, if I polled 100 or 1,000 or 100,000 players, whatever, I think the overwhelming majority would say like, why the fuck would I play a game with a token system in it? From like, I don't care if it's the League of Legends MMO. What, you can buy gold from the outset? That's weird. I don't want that. Why do we have that reaction? Yet WoW gets a pass for its token. Now, you guys are going to have some very smart answers that I haven't thought of yet for this question, but for the life of me, I sit here and go, Blizzard and WoW get such a pass for its token system where everyone just goes, nah, it's okay. Yeah, sure, bring it on. Wrath Classic, retail, let's buy gold. Yeah, sure. But every time a fucking private server is announced, every time a fucking new MMO is announced, we all go, this better not have fucking the ability to purchase power or gold.
Oh, go ahead, Spidey.
Oh, I was just gonna ask who starts. No, go, Galley Boy. Your insights are always so good that my answer will be better by building off them. So I'm a leech on your belly. Go.
All right. I don't think we give WoW a pass, but I think right now at this stage, and I think we've already kind of talked about this, you know, I have enough money to fund my consumables and I've bought all the vendor mounts and, you know, like I also don't participate in GDKPs. So my buying power, even if I had 50 times as much gold as I currently have, is pretty low unless I sought GDKPs out, which I'm just generally not interested in. I've done a couple before. It doesn't click with me, right? I'd rather do a fun pug raid with alts, an alt 10 man with the guild. That's just kind of what I like to do. So I think that's why this is semi okay. And you know, I mean, I don't think I'm not going to cancel my sub for this. Some people might feel differently, but this doesn't impact me as much because I'm already established. I've been playing the game. I have enough to keep doing what I'm doing, and that's why. Now, if it had come out day one, WoW Classic was having a token, different story.
See, you did go where I wanted to go, which is good because it feels now like I'm segueing off of it. I think the established presence of the game gets it the quote unquote pass, not just for these tokens, but for a lot of design decisions, a lot of characteristics. There are a lot of things that people tolerate in this game, retail and otherwise, that they don't in others because of what they have invested in. You have some of the people, like I wouldn't be surprised if Mike resubscribed just to then be able to quit and send a message right now. But other people like Alley Boy are not going to quit over it. And it's, you face it with is this a big enough deal to make me quit? And if it's not, then that's how it quote unquote gets a pass.
Very well said. Anyone else on this one? Mike?
Yeah, I think gamers need to question their ethics and morality of how they think a game should be, rather than how it just directly affects them, and really put themselves to the test. Just because this thing doesn't affect me the way I play the game, but I want the game to be this way. If that's how you think the game should be, you should stick to your guns, stick to your morality, and end it. This is how it's me with the token.
And at some point, like it may affect you whether you like it or not. Like it may just become so prevalent that every item costs 1.5 WoW tokens, or however you divvy that number up, And eventually you log in after not playing for a certain amount of time and you see sale run, selling this amount for this amount of gold. And it just equates to dollar value because it's this amount of tokens. Right? Like you may end up getting sucked into it whether you like it or not is all.
Fair enough. Keeping on.
So-
sorry, go for it, Dom.
Yeah, do you mind if I?
No, absolutely go nuts.
I think that we also, there needs to be a very, 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 very clear distinction here. I'm okay with this power buying system because I do not feel like it is affecting player upon player interactions, right? Like if you were playing a battle royale game and you could buy all the best weapons and all the best armor, I feel like that's super unfair and absolutely unacceptable because it doesn't matter how good somebody else is, you're going to be able to beat them because you have the money to buy the stuff that they can't afford. I don't feel like that's the same thing in WoW. And that's what makes it different is that it's not like we're competing for PvP titles, right? We're not buying PvP gear. We're buying the gear at the end of this raid tier. And it's more of a we're paying money so that we can more efficiently beat the shit out of the system than each other. And I think that making that distinction between what your power buys you is extremely important. And I think that I agree with, for a long time, I refused to be a part of all of these things. And I was like, fuck this is ridiculous. I can't believe this is happening. And then I really looked at it and I was like, why am I mad about it though? Like, and the more that I thought about it, I was like, I think I'm just mad that the way that I want to be able to play the game, I can't do that because it's not really feasible at this point. And that is a play on the developers, right? Like, they're not to blame for everything, but they are, for all intents and purposes, the alpha and the omega of the World of Warcraft servers. If they want to do something, they can, but they have to choose to do that.
The only thing I think of there, Dom, and again, please feel free to call me a fucking idiot and correct me if I'm wrong. But when I hear that, I can't help but have my mind pulled back to something like a Shadowmourne and sort of query that wouldn't the 5 out of 10 skill player who, like we said, he's not necessarily getting carried through a GDKP because he can sort of do mechanics and not kill the raid, but he's a pretty average player. He's dropped all the money. Money is not a fucking issue. He's spent all his cash and he's getting that Shadowmourne and he gets it. And then he runs rampant through the PvP arenas or whatever over the last 3 or 4 months of Wrath, has the greatest time of his life and says, I'll never forget that 3-month window where I was a god in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, all because I spent $2,500 to do so. Is that not still buying power?
I mean, I think that, sure, it's buying power, but you're talking about, at maximum, like, I don't know, 50 people
Yeah,
that could
I
probably
appreciate
afford to do that.
Yeah. The numbers would be low, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think that it would be. It's not like that's feasible with all other things, right? Like it's a one-off. Shadowmourne being the one-off right there, and I don't think that it's feasible. I mean, look, if you're mad about GDKPs, and I'm not calling you guys out. I'm just saying, like, if someone is upset about GDKPs, then what's the difference in the GDKPs and you paying money to somebody to boost you through twos?
No, I hear you. Galley Boy, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to jump in on the Shadowmourne discussion. I play a warrior, if you couldn't tell. But I think it's more than just straight out buying it, right? Like you might have. I think that's such a low percentage because you're essentially asking a guild, unless you're a full GDKP guild, you're asking a guild to give up their guild Shadowmourne to maybe their rep pally, their fury warrior, even their blood DK, who's been there the entire expansion. Hey, this random guy is offering us, 5 million gold or IRL money, whatever that is. Most established guilds would not be okay with that. You'll have your GDKP guilds who, just like they pre-bid Warglaves, how they pre-bid Valeniers, you're going to have that happen. But it's a long quest chain. You have to buy 25 of this. You have to do certain things on bosses. There's a whole bunch of things that go into it. So I do think it's going to happen. And then who knows? It could go to a shitter and they can go into a BG and get stomped by actual PvP players. So I think it could happen. I just think if it does, it's probably going to be low and it might not always go to someone who's going to use it. So
Too easy. Well said, guys. Look, just to finish off this point that I raised before we went on a bit of a tangent there, about buying power in MMOs moving forward. I like I said, I did really balk at the notion that the MMO genre in general for years now has actually embraced the concept of buying power, and that it's kind of like the joke's on you if you didn't notice. But I looked into it. Like I said, Final Fantasy 14 doesn't do it. As far as I know, Guild Wars 2 doesn't do it. As far as I know, Elder Scrolls Online doesn't do it. Like I joked, take this with a huge asterisk, but private servers mostly don't do it. Mostly with, caveat, caveat, caveat. Do you guys feel that with devs increasingly trying to find ways in which to monetize their games, do you feel like there is still going to be a space moving forward for the MMO that really just does the cosmetic shop and everything, and that's fine, and never implements any form of light power purchases?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the number of examples you already stated indicate to me that there is, and as long as they have healthy, thriving communities for different reasons, then yes, I kind of parallel it to it. It's kind of humorous. I was super down on, automatic dungeon group queuing in WoW. I was like, this ruins the sense of community. And then I went to Final Fantasy 14 that has that function.
Preach, say it.
And I was like, I have never felt a stronger sense of community than I do in this game, but it has the same feature. So for that same reason, I don't think we can cherry pick specific elements out of the games and be like, is this an inevitable consequence of this genre? I think that all the other factors around the game influence it, and this is great. It's a great way for Blizzard to make money, but I think it highlights a deficit on some of their work for the need for it, whether that's the lack of enforcing on RNT and botting or otherwise.
Don't even get me started on fucking RDF and automatic grouping, Spidey. We won't talk about it.
You're triggered now.
I'm so triggered. We won't talk about it. All I'll say is because my opinion is so ridiculously unpopular on this, and I understand why. I'm a classic Andy too, but I still think that people somewhat throw logic out the door when they discuss this particular point. Spidey and I have fallen in love with Final Fantasy 14 and the way in which they basically just have RDF and whatnot. Like I said, I've recently been playing, I've been hammering the last 3 days a Legion private server that started over the weekend. And it was I feel like it's been my first exposure to automatic grouping in WoW in ever. You know what I mean? And I was like, I am starting to enjoy WoW again. Why? Because I can fucking do dungeons without it being a hassle. And I'm really enjoying it. And I'm just sitting there going imagine if Wrath had this. But like I said, I don't want to get into it. And when I bring up, hey, what if a season of Mastery had automatic grouping, not necessarily teleporting you to a dungeon, but just at the very least automatic grouping, people lose their fucking minds. But that's a story for another day. Is my mic cutting out? Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, sorry, guys. Okay, I don't know why that's happening. Look, guys, let's move on. Real quick, some people are upset. Some people are upset you can't use, your WoW token or whatever for BattleNet credit. I think it's very obvious why that's a thing. Did anyone get a kick out of that?
I mean,
Wait, so that's you can't redeem it for BattleNet balance?
Not the Wrath token. Nope.
That's really smart because there's a bunch of people sitting with millions of gold. Like they would basically just be allowing new stockholders to come into the game.
Yeah, hi, I'd like to buy a chair on the board.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, then it would literally just come down to like what happens with like secondary markets with skins and like games like CS:GO, where it's just like I'd like to directly turn my gold into all real money, please. Thank you.
So that's interesting because with a biggest problem with the retail token is that, right? I mean, people are selling PvP carries and raid carries to get the gold so they can buy the token, redeem it, and then sell games at a discount or something for real money. I don't know what they do, but interesting. I wasn't aware they did that.
I mean, I think that's really smart, to be honest.
Yeah, there are players out there who are literally like, I want to buy one of Bobby's yachts. I'm not joking. I can afford it. I want one of Bobby's yachts. Give it to me.
Here's my 50 million gold.
Yeah.
So they're just dipping in once then, because Blizzard would normally get the double dip with the BattleNet redemption too. You know, now they're just getting the $5 difference between the sub and the token.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let me throw some theories at you as to continue on with the question as to why now. I'm just going to say a few words. Sorry if my mic's cutting out. I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff. I want to get everyone's take on this. So why now? Is Blizzard, number one, milking the last bit of Classic's popularity? Are they, number two, thinking of the Microsoft factor and the person we just joked about, Bobby, maybe wanting to, get all the fucking different departments pumping as much money in as they can before he checks out? What do you think of those things? Anybody sound off?
I don't think it's either of those. To be honest,
that's
I
fair.
think they're just giving up on
slight conspiracy theories.
Well, so that's a very big picture thing, right? I mean, it's like thinking about the CEO and all that. I really think it's just them like giving up on the bots and gold buying. They have an easy fix that has been in the game elsewhere for a long time, and I just think they're throwing in the towel, you know. And at the same time, if throwing in the towel means making more money, then that's what they're doing.
You've just reminded me, mate. You've raised a good point. And we'll hear from everyone else before I get into this. Actually, anyone else on the old, like I say, slightly conspiratorial. They're just trying to milk the most money out of Classic before it really dips in popularity, or there's the X factor of the Microsoft sale and needing to bump up the stock prices.
I think those things are not so like it batshit insane because I've heard some fucking crazy conspiracy theories in my day, and I don't think any of that is so unreal to completely dismiss those. But I would just say anything remotely reasonable is probably the answer.
And I think that if you look at Blizzard as a company right now, like there's blood in the water, right? So Microsoft came sniffing, one of the biggest sharks out there. They've had a lot of scandals. They've lost. I mean, the people who really made the game special, right? Like Chris Metzen, who, as far as I understand, is back now. But I think they lost their way a long time ago, and now they are run by a group of people whose goal is to make as much money off of it. And I don't want to say it so harshly, but there's really no way to convey how I feel about it. Like, fuck what they want, give them what makes us money. And I think that that's where Blizzard is right now.
Yeah, and the problem is that's their job. They literally are legally obligated to make as much fucking money as humanly possible at all costs.
I mean, they're a business at the end
of the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's fine. I'm not anti-fucking capitalist, but that is their job.
Absolutely. But I think that if you look back, though, I remember in original vanilla, when they introduced Onyxia, and we all got stuck. We couldn't play the game for like 2 days. And they were like, hey, we're sorry. Here's like full rested for every one of your characters. Like back when they had the goal of money, right? Like the goal was money, but they weren't willing to sacrifice their vision of the game just for a few more dollars. They had integrity.
Completely
and
agree.
I don't feel like they do now.
Completely agree. 100% agree.
That's what happened when they became a publicly traded company, where a chair, I can't think of
board of directors.
Board of directors decide what happens to the game rather than the people who develop the game and care about it.
Nope, I
Too.
totally
Maybe-
agree.
I usually don't like to bring these things up on this podcast, but we've gone so close to it that here we are.
all
I'm
right.
all for people making money, but fucking it's fucking ludicrous what corporations do.
We're in 100% agreement.
We'll start to hit the home stretch. Parallax, I know you've got to go in about 10 minutes, mate. That's all right. I'll try and do my thing as quickly as we can. Look, I just wanted to raise a couple more points. I probably haven't done enough for the guys who are very positive about the token being brought in. So I just want to say one or two more things from their point of view to get your guys' take on it. Look, another big thing that now that we're talking about Blizzard, it's important to raise this, I think. And again, in character, I don't believe this, but I'll say it. Look, you guys have been calling out for some form of action on the bots and gold selling, gold buying for so long here. Now here's the company actually fucking taking a step in that direction, like Agren said in his tweet. They're mitigating those problems. How could you bitch about it how could you bitch about the token being brought in when they're actively taking steps to stop bot shenanigans and whatnot?
Are they though?
No.
I feel like that would have been a valid point if at any point in time Blizzard had communicated with us. Hey, these are the steps we're taking. Like, we're doing this in tandem with the tokens, or we want you guys to know that you have access to be able to do the game how you want it, but nothing. Like, the radio silence just makes it feel like, fuck them.
Mm-hmm. And the lack of transparency on their anti-RMT, anti-botting actions, just it makes me giggle at that. And believe me, Josh, I know you're playing the devil's advocate. So
Am I though?
My chuckle is not directed at your person, but at the argument.
Fair enough. Sorry guys, I know my mic is apparently fucking up a lot. I don't know why that's happening. It never happens.
It's not that bad.
Okay, all good. All
Listen,
Yeah.
contextual clues. We can figure out what you're saying.
all good. How about I'll raise this point, and we're really zipping through my last few things here, guys. I don't want to keep you all night. What do you guys think of this as a PR hit for what Blizzard wants to do next with their seasonal server and just moving forward with the classic franchise in general? Do you think this is a black eye for Blizzard, particularly considering we had all that stuff about 6 to 9 months ago about the pillars of classic? We are the people who are protecting the spirit of this game. Does this give them a big black eye in the face of that?
I mean, the boost already did that, but now this is like fucking Mike Tyson coming in,
Yeah.
giving you the fucking knockout punch. You're out cold. That ship has sailed. It's fucking bullshit with the fucking token.
I have to completely agree. Like, I thought that the Pillars of the Community thing was one of the stupidest amalgamations of words that I've ever read. And the concept was like, did you guys even listen? Like, did you take any of the community feedback and listen, or was it just you had an intern who is verbose and just wrote up a fucking podcast for you? Like, Jesus.
I think it's a really cute story, right? But I just don't. I mean, actions speak louder than words. Okay. I mean, they can tell us they believe in XYZ, but I haven't seen that.
Exactly. And I do think that this is, from a PR standpoint, like when I read it, so my best friend linked me this earlier, and I was reading it, and I was like, "There's no way. There's just no way." And then I got into it, and I was like, "Am I mad about this? No, I'm not mad about this. Does it really affect the gameplay? For some people." But then I was like, "But haven't they said so many things about how like they want to keep this different and not like it just felt like a complete 180 from where they were at. Like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And then we're not going to tell you about it. We're just going to slide this in here. Maybe they won't notice."
It all started with the boosts, man. I remember hearing the debates and Josh and Ale going back and forth with people. That was
Let me throw this in there as well. I hear what you're saying, Mike. Absolutely. We can look back and laugh. But let me just say this. I want to hear your reactions. Could you fucking imagine if Blizzard actually started policing third-party gold buying now?
woo! Ooh, that would be a spicy meatball.
I
Now,
mean,
just because now their wallet is directly
Now they're
affected.
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and this
Ugh.
it gives them a secondary layer of enforcement. Like you're already trouncing on our money, now you're really trouncing on it. But at the same time, it's you have condoned this by right. You never said it's okay to buy gold, but you said GDKP is a valid system of rating, like a valid loot system, right? That same thing, just different words. You can put it in whatever frame you want to put it in.
With the communication too, like if they started doing that, we know it behind the scenes what their goal would be, but they haven't communicated at all that they understand how bots happen. They understand that when somebody a level 1 is sending you 20,000 gold and saying, "Hey mate, here's the GDKP cut from the other day," that's not legitimate. That they haven't even exposed that at all to let us know that they're even aware about how this shit happens.
It's hard to expose it when you have 1.25 interns and no paid staff working on your game.
It's true.
I must laugh.
There
You
would
go.
be nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, we know how bots are coded. We can't beat it because of XYZ reason." You're giving fuel to the enemy, but at least they'll know that you know. I don't know.
I have to laugh at the prospect or the thought of your average gold seller waking up this morning and going down to his corner to sling and just seeing Bobby standing there and he's like, "This is fucking my corner now, bitch." Like, get off.
I loved the idea, right? Like when I read that was one of my first initial knee-jerk reactions was, there's gonna be a lot of really angry bot farmers today.
Oh man, what was I going to say? One last thing. Look, guys, we'll wrap it up here. Basically, any final thoughts from you guys? Speak now or forever hold your silence. Have we not touched on anything that we really should have touched on in this call? Anyone?
I think everything got touched on, and I really, really appreciate you guys letting me be a voice in here. Like, it's awesome. I like finding people to talk about this stuff with because it's super interesting to me.
No, mate, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for putting your hand up. You fit in fucking perfectly. Trust me, the guys I'm sure have appreciated it.
That's awesome.
I can't think of anything else. I'm going a bit blank here, guys. Sorry. Look, I am going to do a very extended monologue, I think, on this point sometime in the near future. Not in this episode. I'll do it maybe next week or the week after. You'll get an hour of uninterrupted Josh's thoughts on this one, where I'll just spew forth everything. But I probably didn't do enough credit to when I was playing devil's advocate to the other side of the argument. I apologize to everyone who's really happy that the token is here. By all means, maybe we can tackle a little bit further later on the show. But, my final thought I'll just leave everyone with is one thing that really stands out to me that no one's really talking about as loudly with this is the dog shit cowardly method in which this news was delivered. And I think it's very much so because Blizzard is aware of how fucked it is. Just the lack of words in the blue post about it. I saw a Gren's tweet, and I personally read a Gren's tweet as him perhaps not being happy with it, but obviously he's on the team. He's got to fly the flag. He's got to support the team and blah blah. But like we've heard, it's not like everyone on the Classic team agrees with what gets done to the game, but they've got to do it. I'm really shocked at Blizzard rolling out the news this way. And the other part, thank you for raising it, Romanowski, that's incredibly funny about all of this is the WoW Classic subreddit, what's going to probably turn into the fucking most upvoted post they've had in 3 or 4 years since Classic came out, is their new rule number 4, the rule that bans talk about private servers has been suspended. So all the private servers are now advertising on the WoW Classic subreddit. They're getting upvoted like crazy, and everyone is going, "Yep, fuck this, I'm out, I'm going to go play a private server." That is incredibly funny, and we really have come full circle with everything. I mean, it's just bizarre. Did you guys see all that?
I didn't see it, but I've been told about it by several people, and it's just it's mind-boggling to me.
I'd encourage everyone
this is where we're at.
Yeah, spend some time on the subreddit. It's been wild today. Sorry, someone was going to say something?
No, I think it's the same thing though. Like with, eventually the people that were like, "Hey, maybe we could trade in LFG for RDF," and would instantly get banned from talking about it. Like the censorship is just another layer of them being like, it goes so much further than the "you think you do but you don't" to the "I don't care what you think. This is what we're doing, and if you argue with me, you obviously don't know what you're talking about." Like, and even if it's well constructed, thoughtful things, or people with the private servers or with RDF, like whatever it is, if it's something that Blizzard doesn't necessarily approve of, they don't want anybody to talk about it, right? And the censorship is getting to the point now where people are like, "Oh, we're not censored anymore. Hey, here's 2 middle fingers and a big fuck you."
We've said it before many times on the show. J. Allen Brack was right for the wrong reasons. And here we are talking about it again. Look, let's say our goodbyes. Parallax, mate, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much, mate. Any shout outs?
Yeah, no shout outs, Josh, but really appreciate you having me on again. I loved talking to everyone about this. This is a very heated topic in the community, and I think just the way that it happened was strange. I wanted to take the stance of being against it just because I've seen this movie already, and unfortunately, I don't think it ends pretty. It is what it is. I will probably still continue to play, unfortunately, but just because I love this game. But again, thank you for having me on. No shout outs. Just thanks. Nice talking with you guys.
All good. Thank you, mate. And thanks to everyone as well in general for being so level-headed about this. You guys all really did do well. Not coming in too hot and just talking about it as cool, calm, and collected enjoyers of the game. But to echo Parallax, I'm more than likely about to end my subscription, at least until the next season comes out. But I was going to end it anyway before this news. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, the token, fuck you, I'm ending my subscription because of this." No, I'm not ending my subscription because of this. It doesn't help. But, so WoW just really has not much to offer me right now. And that's why I am actually really enjoying a private server right now. But anyway, Spidey, mate, thank you so much. And any shout outs from you?
Thank you for having me back on. Thank you to this wonderful group. I guess the only shout out is since I haven't been playing WoW Classic, just like Mike, I left for a while ago, my friends and I have been playing on a dedicated but private Project Zomboid server. So if there's any listeners out there who want to get in on that, feel free to join the Countdown to Classic Discord. It's a wonderful community here, and start the conversation. I'll get you an invite.
Oh, there you go. Nice. I love to see it. Plug for the fucking Discord. Hell yeah. Mike, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, happy to be here. God, I really just want to say my fucking hot take right now as my shout out, but
just do it. Just get it off your chest. As long as it's publishable.
We're all friends here.
I guess I just wanted to say if for the people that wanted Classic back but are somehow okay with the token, you didn't really fucking want Classic back.
That was the spice. You can get spicier than that.
The people that are okay, the people that wanted Classic back and are okay with the fucking token are a bunch of fuckwits.
I'll put the words in your mouth for you, even though I'm not saying this. Everyone, Mike is saying this. So, Mike, are you going as far as calling pro token fans fake Classic fans?
Yes, I am.
Oh my god. That's huge. They're going to get very upset now. We're going to get a lot of flames in the comments. Galley boy, mate, thank you so much. Any shout outs?
Thank you so much for having me. I think Parallax summed it up perfectly with the word strange. That is my takeaway from this. It is strange. So shout out to my guild Triumvirate. Shout out to the old Funkadelic guild back when Classic started. And thanks again, guys. This was a good chat.
Thank you so much, mate. And thank you for being the pro voice, even though Mike just called you out. Don't take any of that on board. That's just Mike.
Oh, I've never listened to Mike. It's okay. I'm just kidding.
Dom, mate, fucking rookie of the year in this call. Thank you so much. Any shout outs, mate?
Well, first of all, shout out to Pastor Dave Place. I appreciate you letting me fucking talk here. It's been amazing. I really appreciate everybody's opinions, and I'm always down to discuss this. Just shout outs to Fairlina, Adequate, Honk, the other guys that I play with, and I look forward to talking to you guys more about everything else.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. stick around in the Discord. Like, you'll find plenty of stuff if you like this. Trust me. Dom, actually, I should ask. Dom, had you heard of the podcast before? How'd you find us?
Another shout out to Arcturian, who he sent me this like 2 weeks ago, and I kind of just started watching a little bit here and there and listening, and then I saw your discussion today, and I was like, what a opportune time to join in.
Oh, beautiful, mate. I'll plug myself. If you liked this, God, go check out the Spotify feed. There is hundreds of hours of stuff that you'll like. Don't listen to the old stuff. Listen to the latest stuff.
Okay.
All right.